This worksheet is for the students to help the students identify the independent and dependent variables as well as constants and controls. Question number 1. A study was done to find if different tire treads affect the braking distance of a car. Your independent variable, also known as your manipulated variable, is what we're testing. What are we changing? Your dependent variable is the data or the results of the experiment. What do you hope to find out? So we want to test the different tire treads. Different tire treads. This is what we're changing. This is what we're testing. And then we want to see if that affects the braking distance that we broke. The braking distance. We're not being broken. We're braking our car. Constants. You need to test the same car. You need to have the same person drive, the same speed that you're driving before you brake. Everything is constant except for the independent variable. That's the thing you're changing. And then the dependent variable or the responding variable is the result of what you tested. The time it takes to run a mile depends on the person's running speed. So let's see. What are we testing? We're testing. We want to see if the running speed is going to change the time it takes to run a mile. So we're going to change everybody's running speeds. This one's a tough one, huh? We're testing this. We're changing this. And then how long does it take to run a mile? That is the answer for the dependent variable. That's the data we're going to collect. So people are going to run at different speeds. And then the length of the mile or the time it takes, not the length. The time it takes to run the mile. What's going to be the constant time it takes? Well, we can't keep their running speed the same, but the person, what they're wearing, where they run, on the track or in the field, etc. Those are the things that have to stay the same. The height of bean plants depends on the amount of water they receive. What are we changing? We're changing the amount of water. And what does that depend on? What's the data we're going to collect? We're going to collect the height of the bean plant. What has to be the same? The actual plant we use, how long we test this for. We're going to use the same fertilizer, same soil, etc., etc. The higher the temperature of the air in the oven, the faster a cake will bake. What are we changing? We're changing the temperature. All different temperatures, and then how long, time it takes to bake the cake. Time to bake the cake. Time it takes to bake the cake. What's constant? Well, we're going to use chocolate cake the whole time. We're going to use the same pan size. We're going to use the same altitude. If you make this cake in Colorado, you might have a different outcome. Lemon trees receiving the most water produce the most lemons. What are we changing? The amount of water. What data are we going to collect? What are we going to observe? So your data is what you're observing at the end. That is going to be the number of lemons. The constants. Well, we're using lemons. We're not using an apple tree. So it's a lemon tree. The container that we hold it in, is it going to be in soil? So the pot that we hold it in, maybe the fertilizer we use, the amount of sun that it gets, etc., etc. All right. Do you need more practice? Here comes some more. An investigation found that more bushels of potatoes were produced when the soil was fertilized more. All right. Well, potatoes were produced. This is the data. This is the observation. And why were there more potatoes? Because the soil had more fertilizer. Our independent variable, what we're testing, what we're changing, is the fertilizer. The number or bushels of potatoes is going to be our data we're collecting, what we're observing. This is our dependent responding variable. What's going to be the same? The soil we use, the amount of water, the sunlight, etc., etc. Student measured the temperature of the water at different depths at Lake Skywalker and found that the temperature varied. What did they measure? What was the data they're collecting? Temperature of the water. What are we changing? We're changing the different depths. So that's a clue to help you. What you're measuring and what you're going to be observing is going to be your dependent variable. What is the outcome of your experiment? What are your results? That's the dependent variable. So this one was a little bit tricky worded as well. And if you understood that they're measuring the temperature of the water because they want to see if the different depths affect the temperature of the water. Constants, the same lake. The same person is measuring it. The same organisms are living in that lake. The amount of pollution produced by cars was measured for cars using gasoline containing different amounts of lead. So, what are we measuring? The amount of pollution. So the dependent variable is the pollution levels. And we're going to test the gasoline, how much lead it has. So we're changing gasoline with the lead. So one time we have gasoline that has 5% lead, 10% lead, etc. How much pollution is produced? We need the same car. We need the same type of gasoline, except we're adding lead to it. 4 groups of rats are first masked and then fed identical diets, except for the amount of vitamin A they received. Each group gets a different amount. After 3 weeks in the diet, the rats' masses were measured. What is the data we're collecting? What observations are we making? We are measuring the mass. What does the mass respond to? The vitamin A. This is what we're changing. This is what we're testing, the amount of vitamin A. And constants. We're going to use rats. We're not going to use dogs, cats, and pigs. We're only using rats. We're going to feed them the same exact identical diet. They're going to get the same amount of sleep, the same amount of exercise, etc., etc., etc. Okay, that's done for this one.